traditional centrist saints. Today is part 2 of the Great Replacement Theory video. So if you haven't seen part 1, I encourage you to go back and watch that so you can understand what the Great Replacement Theory is, why it's dangerous, and kind of who's talking about it, what side it's on, what extreme it's on. Today, we're going to focus on the history of the Great Replacement Theory, and then what the LDS Church has said about it, if anything. And third, how we can talk civilly and be a peacemaker about this topic with people who may believe it, or maybe they don't know about it and they've kind of been sucked into this ideal. So first of all, we're going to talk about the history. And I'm going to post another screenshot here about the from this article that I posted, and I will post down below again by people who are a lot smarter than me. I'm going to give you kind of an overview of the history. The first we kind of saw this was in 1973 from a French author who wrote a kind of dystopian apocalyptic story about how immigrants overtook the white Western civilization and got rid of it, essentially. And so if you can understand the Great Replacement Theory, you can see how that kind of started that idea that immigration could overtake Western civilization and get rid of it. We see in here in the US, it started to take hold more in the 1980s, 1990s with kind of fringe groups, really anti-immigrant groups, KKK, that kind of really fringe, super far right or alt-right, and really took hold then. And then in the 2010s is when people really started to actually talk about it in mainstream mainstream right side of things. So Stephen Miller, Bannon, those guys are super anti-immigrant, and this idea kind of really took hold. We saw in the 2010s, I can't remember exactly the year, but with Unite the Right, they started using the phrase, we will have our home again, you won't displace us or you won't replace us, that kind of thing. So it became more mainstream through the 2010s. And obviously, as I pointed out in the first video, there have been a lot of violence and mass shootings that have happened due to this thinking. All right, so that's kind of the history. Second, what does the LDS Church say about it, if anything? So the LDS Church, as far as I can see, has not come out specifically and said the words Great Replacement Theory. But if you look at, and I'll post this here too, so you can look at it, this is what they say about race. And so this is in the Gospel Topics, if you want to look at this. So in this talks about race and the priesthood, that kind of thing. But specifically, what do we think about this theory is in this section right here. And you can see that it says we don't do the whole white culture thing. If we don't talk about being replaced as white culture, that is racist. It's not okay. The LDS Church has come out against anything that is racist or says that white culture is being overtaken. So even though they haven't used the words the Great Replacement Theory, as far as I have seen, correct me if I'm wrong. If you have seen it, please let me know. I would love to see that. But as far as I have seen, that they have come out against specifically using those kinds of words, which the people who espouse this theory do. A kid come in. So this last part is, how do we talk about this civilly or combat this civilly? And my first suggestion with any kind of situation like this, where we're trying to open up a dialogue but still be peacemakers, is to lead with curiosity every time. Ask questions. So in this particular situation, why do you feel that way? Do you have evidence to show that? Can you help me understand what is bad about having more brown people than white people? Could you help me understand why that makes you scared to have more Muslim people coming into the country? Help me understand. And then after we lead with curiosity, I try to find some way that I can open my heart or soften my heart towards this person. Sometimes that is that I can, and I don't have to say this out loud, but in my heart, I can think, oh, I am sorry for this person that has been led to believe that this whole package is part of being a conservative. I can soften my heart to them. Or let's say that they were a Charlie Kirk fan. I can soften my heart to them by thinking they had a hero killed in front of them, right? They watched their hero be killed, and how hard that would be for me to see that, to see one of my heroes go through that. Something like that, right? So soften my heart. So curiosity, soften my own heart, continue to ask questions. And I have found that if someone is truly a seeker of truth and they really want to have a dialogue and they really want to learn, that they will start asking questions back and that we can actually get a good dialogue going, and always answering with meekness and humility. I'm not good at that, but I'm trying. And then finally, just to end a conversation, if the person is willing and open, I try to send them articles. I try to link them to real data, real people, again, people who know more than me, information, and say, hey, this might be a great place to start to learn. And if you want to talk about this, let me know. That's a good way to kind of end a conversation with a real truth seeker. Now, the people that I have a hard time with are the people who, when it comes down to it, they really just are white supremacists. They really are racist and believe that white Christian culture is American, is the American way. I have the hardest time with that. But what I try to do in the end is, can I find something to agree on? And maybe it's just that we both want to be patriots. That's a great place to end. Hey, at least we found out that we both want to be patriots. Maybe it's the fact that we both believe that America is a blessed nation. Okay, we can go with that. We can end with that. And but if it starts to get negative and they're starting to attack rather than ask questions, I usually try to just end by saying, it looks like we're just going to have to agree to disagree on this. You're still my brother or my sister, and I wish you the best. But this conversation isn't going anywhere. Isn't going to go anywhere good for either of us. So hopefully that helps. Lead with curiosity. Keep asking questions. Find a way to soften your heart. Possibly find a way to agree if you can. And if it's not going to get to that point, agree to disagree. Wish them a good day. So I hope that helps generally to understand what the great replacement theory is. If you have any questions, if you have any concerns about it or anything else you want to talk about, please send me a comment and we can chat about it. I am not saying that I know everything about this. I'm just trying to let people know about these extremes that are out there so we can try to combat them civilly. So thank you again so much for watching, and I'll see you next video. Bye.